The scissors hovered just inches above her hair, and in that frozen second, something in her eyes changed. Something so dark, so chilling, it made the laughter in the room feel suddenly out of place. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for those who suffer in silence, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because stories like this deserve to be heard. The classroom had always been loud, but that day it felt crueler than usual. Sunlight poured in through the windows, casting warm patterns across the wooden floor, but the warmth never reached her. She sat still, her hands resting on her knees, her expression blank, almost lifeless. A thin yellow plastic sheet was draped over her shoulders like a mock salon cape, crinkling softly every time she breathed. The girl behind her giggled as she lifted a lock of her long black hair between her fingers. Around them, the other students watched with amusement, some whispering, others openly laughing. Desks had been pushed aside to create a stage, and she was the unwilling center of it all. She had always been quiet. Too quiet, they said. Strange, cold, easy to pick on. But what they didn't know was that silence can hide storms. For months, she had endured their jokes, their whispers, their cruel games. They hid her books, spilled ink on her bag, tripped her in hallways. And she never fought back. Not once. Her silence became their permission. That day, they decided to go further. The scissors opened with a soft metallic click, and the girl behind her leaned closer, smiling as if this were nothing more than harmless fun. A few strands of hair fell to the floor, and the room erupted in laughter. But then, something shifted. The girl in the chair slowly raised her head. Her eyes, once dull and distant, now held something terrifyingly focused. Not anger, not fear, something deeper, something controlled. The laughter faded, one voice at a time, as an unexplainable tension filled the air. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood up. The sudden movement startled everyone, causing the chair to scrape loudly against the floor. The yellow sheet slipped off her shoulders and fell silently, like a signal that something had ended, and something else had begun. Her gaze moved across the room, meeting each pair of eyes. No expression, no hesitation. The girl holding the scissors stepped back, her smile faltering. For the first time, uncertainty crept into her face. There was something deeply unsettling about the way she stood, calm, composed, but radiating a quiet intensity that made even the boldest students uneasy. And then, without a word, she walked forward. Each step echoed louder than it should have, as if the room itself had gone silent to listen. She stopped in front of the group who had been laughing the hardest. For a moment, no one moved. Then one boy chuckled nervously, trying to break the tension. But the sound died quickly, swallowed by the heavy silence. Because now, up close, they could see it. Her hands weren't shaking. Her breathing was steady. And her eyes, they didn't look like the eyes of someone who had been broken. They looked like the eyes of someone who had been waiting. Rumors had always surrounded her. Strange ones. Stories about her past, about why she transferred schools so suddenly, about incidents no one could confirm. Most dismissed them as exaggerations, but in that moment, those rumors didn't feel so impossible anymore. She reached out slowly, not to strike, not to grab, but to take the scissors from the trembling hand of the girl who had been bullying her. The room held its breath. She examined the scissors briefly, turning them in her hand, before placing them gently on a nearby desk. And then, she did something no one expected. She picked up a handful of her own cut hair from the floor and let it fall again. It was such a small, simple gesture, yet it carried a weight that none of them could understand. Because it wasn't about the hair. It was about everything they had taken from her, and everything she had allowed. She turned toward the class one last time. There were no threats, no outbursts, just silence. But this silence was different. It wasn't weakness. It was power. From that day forward, something changed in the classroom. No one touched her things again. No one laughed when she walked by. The same students who once mocked her now avoided her gaze, whispering not out of cruelty, but fear. But the truth was far more complicated than they realized. She wasn't dangerous in the way they imagined. She wasn't a monster. She was someone who had learned through pain and isolation how to control herself, how to endure, and how to choose her response. Her strength wasn't in revenge, it was in restraint. And slowly, quietly, something unexpected began to happen. A girl who had once laughed the loudest started leaving small notes on her desk, apologies written in shaky handwriting. A boy who had tripped her before now held the door open without meeting her eyes. Change didn't come all at once, but it came. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is not fight back, but rise above. If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And before we reach the end, I have a special request for you. Comment the word strong if you believe that silence doesn't mean weakness. In the end, she never became what they feared. She became something far stronger, someone who didn't need to prove anything to anyone, someone who turned pain into quiet strength, and someone who reminded an entire room full of people that kindness, once lost, is much harder to earn back than fear. If this story moved you, don't forget to engage with the video and share your thoughts below. Your support helps stories like this reach the hearts that need them most.